So, just to share with you as well, I remember about 10 years ago when I joined Intel. When you're a new employee, you're usually brought to Santa Clara to meet the head of every department there is at Intel. And most interesting was meeting the head of research and development. Back then, he was telling us that Intel's R&D is worth 10 years. What does that mean? Because for most IT companies, R&D is worth 2 years. Meaning, when you say R&D is 2 years, for example, if this is a clicker, no? If there's a new clicker that came into town today, R&D for this device would have been 1 year, meaning this was developed a year ago. Intel's R&D is worth 10 years, meaning whatever you're buying from Intel today, which is on Ivy Bridge, means that it was developed 10 years ago. And whatever we're doing within Intel labs today are all meant for 2022. So that's how advanced we are in terms of technology. So don't ask me what to expect in the next 10 years, because we would have to kill you if we do, huh? It's top secret. So the point there is, the smaller the transistors we're able to make, the more we can put it, the more we can slit inside that small space, as small as your fingernail, to create the most powerful CPU today. Now, just a trivia. Would you know how many transistors we have in an AM radio today? Do you have any clue? How many transistors we have in an AM radio today?
None.
Guess?
One.
Mabibilang niyo lang sa kamay niya.
One.
There are about 10 transistors in an AM radio today.
AM.
Would you have any clue how many transistors we have in an Intel Core i7 processor? How many transistors do you think do we have in an Intel Core i7 processor? Any guess? Wild guess? Sorry? 30 transistors! Oh, may lalaban mo sa 30 transistors. Wala? We only have about 900 million transistors in an Intel Core i7 processor. Just to give you an idea on how small these transistors are. We can get to as much as 900 million transistors to give you the performance you need today. And the best part is, this is Ivy Bridge. And with this Ivy Bridge CPU, brings you a performance we've never had before, and a battery life so far than what we got used to. So what Lenovo is going to show you today are very thin form factors of these new notebooks that are even more powerful and which has longer battery life. You know, the dynamics of buying notebooks based on battery life have changed. Back then, I would presume that when you want to buy a notebook with long battery life, you ask for the number of cells it has. The more cells you have, naturally, the longer battery life you'll have, right? But today we're squeezing down the size of these notebooks. The thinner they are, the less cells that you can only slit in that machine. So my point here, with less cells, you actually get longer battery life only because of our technology under the Ivy Bridge microarchitecture era. So with that, I'd like to congratulate Lenovo for bringing us the latest generation of machines. Thinner, more performing machines, more powerful, and longer battery life. So again, thank you. Turbo Boost. For those of you who are not familiar with Turbo Boost, the difference is that for most CPUs today, we all got used to asking what the gigahertz are, diba? The beauty about Intel CPUs is we have Turbo Boost, meaning your CPU is never clocked down to just one frequency. If in case your application demands for more frequency, Intel will be giving you more of the gigahertz. So for example, if you buy a Core i5 today that runs on 2 gigahertz, if your application needs more power, it will not only give you 2 gigahertz, it can clock up all the way to 2.5 gigahertz. It is not a concern on, it's not anything related to overclocking, because overclocking would mean putting the gigahertz higher than what its optimal temperature can take. So this one is playing within the same temperature, but giving you more of the performance when you need it. Now, why is that, no? Kasi some people were asking me before, Wowie, why is there a need for turbo boost? Bakit hindi mo na lang bigay yung 3.5 gigahertz in advance so we won't have to wait for it to clock up, no? The idea here is that if the clock runs lower, you actually get longer battery life. There are only moments, a few moments that you get, or that your application needs. There are only a few moments when an application actually needs higher frequencies. For example, if you launch Photoshop from 1.7 gigahertz when your CPU is sleeping, right? But once you click Photoshop to launch it, it will crank it up all the way to 3.5 or 3.7 gigahertz. After a few seconds, it's done. It goes back to 1.6 gigahertz. That is one of the techniques that Intel uses to prolong your battery life. For most of our competitors, they don't have that feature. They're always on rev, no? If they say they are on 3 gigahertz or forever running on 3 gigahertz, even if you're not using the machine, that's why you get shorter and shorter battery life. So that's the idea. Thank you,
I'm
sir.
sorry. What was the processor model again?
i7-3520. You can check over at art.intel.com.
Alright.
It's all there.
And the stock clock is
Sorry.
the stock clocks.
Start clocks at,
Stock clocks of the CPU.
when you say stop clock, sorry.
The default clock.
Oh, the base frequency.
Yeah.
I'll just check it here for you. It's over at art.intel.com. Yeah. ARK. Yeah. Everything about the CPU that you usually, so just to share with you, Intel, bakit di alam, there are hundreds of CPUs that we don't memorize. Huh? So there's just too many permutations. Yeah. All right. So let me get back to you shortly. I'll just
Sure.
check the web. Thanks.